If you spend your entire life trying to make it work, but never feeling like you have found your fertile soil, then I feel you're robbing the right people of pieces of yourself that are looking for you.
Hello there. It's Mandy Woodard, and this is Courageous Conversations. The show is all about our life journey and the growing and healing we go through. Sometimes it takes great courage to step out of where we are and choose a different path. I started this show because I wanted you to know that you are not alone, no matter where you are in your life journey. And my hope is that you will hear a story that I share or a conversation that I have, and you will get something out of it. You will have an aha moment or a realization, and you'll know what you need to do, because it is my belief that we are all here to help each other grow and become the best version of ourselves and find what our purpose is. So thank you for being here. Thank you for listening. Let's get started.
Hello. I want to say good morning because it is very much early in the morning for me. I had to wake up early in order to get this episode finished because yesterday was Monday and it was one of the Mondayest Mondays I've had in a very long time. I mean, my contact fell out when I was driving. If that's not such a cliche Monday thing to have happened, I don't know what is. You know, when you just keep hitting these blocks, when you're trying to do something, you just keep having all of these fires you have to put out. That's what yesterday was like for me. So I decided that, you know what? I'm going to get a good night's sleep. I'm going to go to bed early and get a good night's sleep so I can feel refreshed. And I will wake up and record the intro in the morning. And so that's what I did. But I did set my alarm for 30 minutes earlier than what I think I only hit snooze for about 15, 20 minutes, which is really good for me, to be honest with you. But I kept dreaming that I was recording and talking. So I was thinking I was already doing it. I was already doing the thing that I needed to get up for. Isn't it funny how our brains work like that? So I'm having my coffee with you as I get this episode prepped before you dive into my conversation here. But I just want to share this with you because it's just, I don't like chaos. I don't like hustle. I don't like busy. But sometimes life gets that way and there's nothing we can do about it. And that's where it is right now for me. And it's a beautiful thing, honestly. So I have moved from a very small room in my office where I see my clients to a much bigger room. And the whole reason why I did that is because I needed more time in the week to be able to come into the office. So my days are filling up during the week now. And I'm seeing more clients and it's so amazing. So as I get adjusted to this new schedule, it feels a little bit like hustle. And the next exciting piece to this is I now get to go back to hosting my Reiki circles. So if you're local to me and you would like to come to a Reiki circle, I am having one on Sunday, October 29th, and I would love to have you. I have limited seats, but it's a good time. It's a good way to recenter yourself, but also connect with others. It's a beautiful time to be able to sit and have meditation. I spoil you with some hot tea and a charcuterie board. And we do Reiki, of course, and journal and even share a little bit sometimes. Okay, so let's hop into this episode. I will say we jumped right in. I have a habit of doing that here lately with my guests. We just kind of get rolling with it. But Becca is someone that I met in such a wild way in 2017. And I say wild, it really wasn't wild, but it was very divine how the doors opened for me to meet her. I want to tell this story because I want you to know that sometimes doors open and they don't make sense. You don't know why you're being pulled in a direction, but you are, and you kind of have to follow that. So in 2017, I hired this amazing photographer. She lives in Colorado, which is, for those of you who are not local to me, that's like across the country to me. But she was coming this way to teach a workshop. And I hired her to take our family pictures. So she did. And then the next day she called me, or she sent me a message and said, the family that was supposed to be photographed for the workshop to help them train the other photographers or teach the other photographers had backed out. Could your family do it? Well, it was a big stretch for me to make this happen. But I told my husband, there's just something telling me that we need to go. There's something telling me I need to go do this. So I kept the kids home from school. It was right in the middle of Scarlett's nap time. She was only 1 at the time. And we went. It was about an hour away, and we got to be models for this workshop, which was so fun. I didn't really get a whole lot of pictures from it, but the few that I did, I got from my friend Becca, because she was actually attending this workshop. And she posted a few online and tagged me, and that's how I found her, because we actually didn't even meet this day. Even though we are somewhat local to each other, we live about 45, 50 minutes away from each other. But that moment in time, that little moment of time of her just popping her head in the door to snap a couple pictures, because she wasn't even hanging in the room. She literally just jumped in and took a couple photos, turned into this amazingly beautiful friendship. It opened the door for my network marketing company that I joined. And I don't talk about a lot, but it really did so much for my family and the time that I was with it. It was such a blessing. And it all started here. It started in this space. It also was what gave me the opportunity to not book myself solid with photography clients, which allowed me then to go and do what I needed to do to become a life coach and do the work that I'm doing now. So when I say a door opened that didn't make sense, I'm telling you, it made absolutely no sense. But at the end of it all, it led me to such a beautiful friendship, opportunities for my career to shift and change, and allowed me to be home with my kids when I needed to be home with my kids. So follow the doors as they open, because even if they don't make sense, it's at some point it will. The next thing I want to say before you start listening to our conversation is I really do want to put a little trigger warning here in the beginning. We talk about loss a good deal. She lost her mother, and that is a huge part of her story. So we share a lot about that. And we're talking about 2020. And, that was such a crazy, chaotic year. So I just wanted to give you that warning in case it's a sensitive thing for you that you're still working through. But I hope that you will get something out of her story. I know that you will. There's going to be something that you can take away from what she says. She speaks so beautifully about the situations that she's been faced with and the lessons that she's had to learn throughout her life. All right, here is my sweet friend, Becca Pickett.
I was a very interesting kid too, don't worry.
Yeah. Interesting kids grow up to be amazing adults, in my opinion.
I agree.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah. And my mother had her hands full, I think. I don't know. I was a hyper kid at times, but it depended on my environment. And now that I know my human design, I get why, because I'll amplify the energy of the room. So if there was explosive arguments, then I was an explosive, angry child. But if it was comedy, then I'm going to be the funniest, happiest person in the room. Yeah. So it's kind of funny. But anyways, hi, Becca.
Hi, Mandy.
How are you?
I'm fantastic.
Thanks for driving all the way over here.
No, thank you for having me. It's an honor.
Say that into the microphone.
What do you want me to say? It's an honor to be here.
Wait a second. Wait, who was that? Because that was pretty good.
I don't know.
It's a Saturday Night Live voice. What's her name? I don't know. She's like...
Oh, I know what you're talking about now. I cannot remember.
Say it again.
We're going to have to look. No, I can't.
Is it the Bridesmaids girl? Or is it a different person? I just recognize it. Okay. Are we going to have some sustenance in this? Some substance? Is sustenance only for food, or is it also for this?
I think it's for life.
Oh, okay. Let's talk about life then.
Yeah, let's talk about life.
Let's fill this podcast with some sustenance.
I've got it. You just got to ask it.
Okay. Anyways, let's talk about life.
To invite me back and do one there too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
After your year of amazingness?
Yes.
Okay, we'll do that because you're embarking on a new adventure, and I don't want to spoiler alert drop the bomb yet.
I am. So I'm not even going to put timestamps because I don't even believe in that anymore. I'm in a flow state right now where as things happen, I am just embracing it, holding on for the ride. But I am getting ready for an RV trip cross country with my 9-year-old, and we're unschooling. So the whole vision is to give her the most exciting and adventurous experience of her life. And mine too, I think. So we have been spending the last year renovating a 31-foot or not even like an RV, but it's like a house on wheels. And so that's completely ready to go now. And now I'm just in the process of cleansing my space and getting rid of material things and all of that so that I can hit the road with a clear slate.
Yeah.
That's the goal.
Do you know what I think of when you say that is so many people want that as their goal?
Yeah.
Actually, Tawny that I interviewed and her podcast would have aired. It's number 38. I'll just say that because I don't know. Timeline. That's what she did.
Yeah.
She sold her house, her and her family. They loaded up an RV and went into the mountains. Yeah. But here's the thing. So many people want to do that, but they don't actually do that.
Right.
You've been saying you wanted to do that.
Right. And you've witnessed me for several years now, just talking about it. And I just reached a point where I'm tired of postponing my life. And I've been doing that for a long time. Yeah. And it's time for me to actually follow through on the dreams and visions that I have instead of sitting back and watching everyone else live it out.
Yeah.
And I am all for, I am the biggest cheerleader. I cheer everyone on in every way, but I've had the hardest time finding the space to cheer myself on through things. And so that's what this year is about, is to genuinely lean in and be my own cheerleader and brave some things out. It's not going to be easy, and I know that, but that's the part that I'm excited about. I'm ready to be pushed. I'm ready to be challenged. I'm ready to meet a new version of myself. Yeah. And I think this is an invitation to do that. And also, the world is changing really rapidly. And I don't know that I'll have, a solid opportunity to take this journey again, or it to be in the health that I'm in, or so many things changed, and I think, we probably shouldn't get too deep into this early in the play right now, but I lost my mom in 2020. Yeah. And I would say that was Pandora's box.
Well, that's what was going to be my question. So, yeah, let's go in there deep, quick. When you are a deep person, you're a deep person. Yeah. Small talks, brushing the surface, screw that. No, let's go.
I don't function well on the surface. And I think that's why I've struggled so much in different areas of my life, from career paths to relationships, is that I seek depth. And when I'm not finding it, or it's not being reciprocated, I'm just floating, and I feel like I don't fit in, I don't belong, so many things, and I question myself instead of my environment. And what I'm doing now is changing the environment so that I can stop questioning myself.
Okay, that is great. And can we just re-say that? Because everybody, let me not say everybody, I want to say so many people are uncomfortable where they are sitting and they think it's them. It's a them thing. And I don't know, we all need to grow and change and acknowledge some things about ourselves that aren't so well received, like if we're a jerk or something like that is what I'm referring to.
Right.
But for the most part, it's not you, it's your environment.
100%.
And you have to change your environment. Right. And changing your environment is really hard sometimes because you want to fit in there. You want to be there.
Yeah.
It looks great there.
Yeah.
But it don't feel great there.
I think ultimately, wherever there is, we all have a longing to belong.
Mm-hmm.
Wherever that is. And if that's, we want to belong where our feet are. And it doesn't matter if it's like, a group of people or friends or, even just a community, a town, whatever, a relationship, even with your children, you want to feel like your feet are in solid soil and that you're going to be received well, but that you're also going to be able to give something in that space as well. And when you realize that it's not always like that, there are times where you've got to uproot yourself and you need to replant yourself. And just remember that when there's toxicity, when there's a lack of self-awareness in people around you, and I think we both realize this, is that when we have a heightened level of self-awareness, we will try really hard to make it work, whatever it is. Because we're so self-aware that we're like, okay, well, we can take something from this. We can extract a lesson from this. We can evolve because of this. We can find somewhere to serve and help somebody. Whatever that is, we're always like, well, we're okay here because we can find a way to make it work. But if you spend your entire life trying to make it work, right? But never feeling like you have found your fertile soil, then you're robbing the right people of pieces of yourself that are looking for you versus you pushing yourself into a space and trying to fill it, right?
I love that because you said that, and what I was thinking, I feel like these two things go beautifully together because you're saying that you're robbing the people who do deserve to see you as you are, but also you're putting on a mask and you're separating yourself from your authentic version of 100%. Yourself, and you're transforming into this person that isn't in alignment.
Because we're making other people comfortable.
Right. You're trying to make the people around you comfortable or even accepting of who you are. Oh, I can change that. Oh, yeah, I'll not do that. Oh, yeah, this. Oh, no, I don't have to take the lead here. You take the lead here. And oh, yeah, that's fine. And so when you do that, it's like you put another layer on and then another layer and then another layer. And that's when people get to this point where they're like, who am I?
Well, that brings me to 2020 specifically. Because, and I'll be the first to tell you, you don't always know that that's what's happening.
Right.
Right? Like,
no, 100%.
Yeah. Like
you are really not usually aware that that's what's happening.
You're trying to do what you feel is right. You're going based off of the lens that you've been viewing the whole world through your entire life, right? So you're filtering it through all of these things, from life experiences to your childhood upbringing to whatever religious beliefs you might have or have been brought up through, on top of mentorship and friendships and all these different influences. So it's not that you're being this, fake or facade of some sort. It's that you're operating from the program that's running. And it's a powerful program. And so until you tune in or something happens in life that jolts you, that just rocks you to your core, which is what happened to me in 2020 with my mom, and I'm finally to the point where I can talk about this without completely losing it, but it's been a rough road.
Yeah, it's pretty raw.
So, my mom got sick, and she got sick in late of 2019 with something as simple, what we thought was, a UTI. And so I'll spare the deep details of everything because we would be here for hours,
right?
Literally hours. But she got really sick, and 2020 came around, and she wasn't getting any better after the first of the year, and the infection spread in her body. Lots of things took place, from medical neglect and malpractice to COVID.
Yeah.
Right? So all the lockdowns took place in March, which essentially locked our family out, away from her, being in multiple facilities. She was being shuffled in multiple facilities between doctors, and at that time it was very confusing and erratic, I think, for everyone. No one knew what was going on. Policies were changing every day. And we were fighting to try to get her home ultimately. We thought she just had an infection and she needed to be treated and come home. That didn't happen. And in April, now, so this is a very long journey, from the end of 2019 to April of 2020, we finally got the all clear to go to be with her because she had suffered some mental regression, which was part of like the policy the hospital had in place, was that if a patient was suffering from mental regression, they could have what was called a companion visitor. And this happened to be on the tail end of I would say, the biggest mental breakdown of my life, which was April 25th. And I knew that my mom was dying.
Yeah.
So I knew that in my soul. It wasn't even a physical thing. Like, I could feel her. Mm-hmm. And that night, I had a complete breakdown, and I just begged God to please just open a door. That if nothing else, I just wanted to be there with her. Yeah. She was alone, And of course, my sisters and I, we had been fighting the whole time just to try to get permission to come in, and we couldn't. And we were FaceTiming her and all the stupid things, of trying to keep connection in 2020. But it was not going to suffice for what she needed. She needed her family, and I knew that. And so I had a mental breakdown. Unfortunately, my daughter witnessed that. Well, maybe not so unfortunate, actually.
It's your older daughter.
Yeah. So she basically had to peel me off the floor, and the next day we got my younger sister found out that they had added the policy that if she had mental regression, we could come in. And so I immediately woke up, packed a bag, said, I'm going to, try to get in. And it was such a weird experience, walking into the hospital. And it's like you're walking into a totally different world. It was nothing like what we knew that space to be prior to COVID, right? So it was scary and quiet and eerily, energetically off and like all that. So when I got to her, finally got all the, they had to do all the things to let me get in. And so once I got into the room and I pulled back the curtain to see her, it was just not my mom. Yeah. And that entire, that moment was a spiritual moment. Yeah. It was a life-altering moment. And they had just robbed her of her life. They had robbed her of her soul. And in that moment, and I connected with her, she wasn't verbal, which was, for all those listening, she wasn't mentally ill. She went in there with total, coherence. She was, physical issues. She had a lot of health issues my entire life, but mental stuff, she struggled with anxiety and depression, but not
to the extent
that she couldn't communicate, not to the extent that she was, losing her mind. And a lot of the depression and anxiety came from the physical things and the medications that she was on and things like that, right? So, and that's a whole nother topic. But when I realized that my mom was different from the last time I had seen her in person, it shook me out of a deep state of, numbness. Yeah. And I began to just fight to get her back. And from that point, within 24 to 48 hours, she started talking to me. She started eating, holding her drink. She started to improve because I was present. And the nurses took note of that.
Yeah.
She hadn't done anything on her own independently in weeks. Right. And now she's starting to come back. And that was all good until things got really sketchy with the decisions that were being made in the hospital. And I feel like that's an episode, in itself, is the level of medical neglect and malpractice that took place in my presence.
Yeah.
But I couldn't. My daughter just asked me this week, like, should we have pursued something? Should we have done something, to fight against it? But we're talking about a very powerful system.
Right.
That's your word against their
and
records.
Not just like one thing.
No.
It's layers.
It's layers upon layers upon layers. What I knew in that moment was that I didn't want to do anything to get me kicked out of the hospital. And because we were in such a very touchy, trying time, rocking the boat in any way would have led them to having me removed from the room. And so I knew that I needed to not rock that boat. I needed to be present with her. That was the number one goal, was to be in the room, to be witness to it, to be a presence that would bring her some kind of comfort.
Yeah. Which
I did do. And I worked really hard. I've never nurtured or cared for someone to that level in my life, which is very humbling. Very humbling.
And to do it for your mom. And I just have to tell you, it's like, this is one of those times where it's, we have to really learn as humanity to sit in the shit with people.
Oh, for sure.
And it's like, there's nothing I could say to like take that pain from you, but I'm like here with you. Like, I'm sitting with you in this.
Such an honor to sit with her.
Yeah. Like sit in the shit with her. Yeah.
Yeah. And even hold some of it for her, even take some of it on, communicating with the doctors and witnessing, even just bearing witness to what was taking place was...
And you've told me a lot of these stories, and it's disgusting. And here's what I can say about this is, like, the only thing I'll probably say about this, because you're right, it's a whole separate thing. But like, why are we waiting for the regression?
Yeah.
Like, we should know by now that is what's going to happen if you isolate a human.
Well, and I think, if we're all being really honest with ourselves, we know we know that the underlying issue is a system that's really broken.
Right.
And we can get into that all day long too. But at the end of the day, I realized that it had to happen the way that it did. And that's been the journey of the last 3 years.
Yeah.
As horrible and like heartbreaking as it has been, and infuriating.
Yeah.
Infuriating, because there was this part of me that was just so angry.
Yeah.
For so long that functioning in my own day-to-day life became almost impossible.
Right.
Because the only thing on my mind was why.
And what could I have done different? And what could somebody else have done different? And if this didn't happen, this would have happened. It's like,
And then you start going back even further into how you got there to begin with. And then it just goes and goes and goes. And ultimately, that really opened my eyes to do a lot of things, Mandy. It opened my eyes to, number one, take a real hard look at myself and how I was living my life.
Right.
In terms of my health, in terms of my self-care, in terms of would I be putting my own life in the hands of a system that I don't trust?
Right.
And then it caused me to realize I'm hitting a rock bottom, okay? Which we all do at some point, multiple times through life, we hit rock bottoms. This was a deep one. And when it took place, I had to take inventory of what was happening in my relationships around me. And that boiled down to not just, my work life, my children, my partner, my spouse, my best friends, all of it. I had to analyze every aspect of my life, because I am someone who I want to be something that you need, right? Like, I've spent my whole life, my nickname as a kid was Cuddlebug, right? That was my grandmother's nickname for me, because I always wanted to make sure everybody was okay. Like, that was my intention of any space I went into. Like, you were mentioning how you adapt to the energy in the room. For me, I would walk in and notice who wasn't okay.
Yeah.
And just gravitate towards that person. And it would be as simple as like I would sit on their lap, or I would put my hand on their face, or I would rub their hair, or I was just that person that just went, is everybody okay? And I never went, even all through my adult life, I didn't want to rock any boats because I want everybody to be okay.
Well, I've witnessed that. But I've also appreciated that.
No, I know. And
I say that, and it's like, sure, that's not like, is it a bad thing? I don't know. That's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying, like, we have to take care of ourselves, yes. Mm-hmm. And we can't be consumed by everybody else's hurts and pains, because that's overwhelming. Mm-hmm. But, like, as someone who's been in your presence when you've been that way, like, it's not something I've always had either. So it's... Yeah, I really appreciate you caring about me in this moment that I'm having an anxiety attack. And instead of telling me, calm down, it's like, what can I do for you? Right. Like, what do you need right now? Right. And I don't know that I've ever had anybody really sit and do that with me.
Yeah.
The way that you have. So there's a compliment for you to take from that cuddle bug.
Received. Totally. No, I appreciate that. Because it's a part of me that I've thought I needed to change. Mm-hmm. For a long time. Because it's hard to balance.
Yeah.
It's so hard to balance when I can see the good in like all things, like genuinely. And I can sit with something. This is where I've had to learn the difference between, and this was actually very recently that I had to recognize, okay, so we've had all these really coined terms going like, viral over the last
it's all become
years.
trendy.
Everything's trendy, from empath to to trauma to like all the words, which I'm so grateful for, because at the end of the day, humanity is opening up, right? We're becoming aware of these things that didn't make sense. We didn't have an understanding of, and now we have resources. Right. And now we know the questions to ask now. We didn't know the questions before. Now we do. And I'm learning that all this time, I think that I'm this empathetic person, which I absolutely 100% am.
Right.
But I have been operating in hypervigilance my entire life.
And why is that?
Right. And I grew up in a very authoritative, small town conservative upbringing with very specific ways that you operate. But on top of it, we were a very poor family, right? We below the middle class line, but my parents just, figured a way to do whatever when it came to finances. So I operated in a space, and I say that, the reason I say that is because when my parents were trying to like make ends meet and figure things out financially and all the things, because finances are a very huge stress. Yeah. In a family, right?
For sure.
Specifically in a marriage. And what I noticed, looking back, obviously hindsight, because I have so much more, to compare things to and to look through now, is the recognition that the weight that was putting on my family, my parents growing up, on top of their own childhood wounds, led to a very toxic environment for our home. Yeah. Lots of arguing, lots of fighting, and not just like your typical fights, but like raging fights, and, right? Things like that. And me being the cuddle bug was always, everything's okay. So I was always reading the room. I was always trying to make dad okay, trying to make mom okay, making sure my sisters were okay. Like it was just, this thing. And it's funny, I'm the middle sister, right? And my older sister was very much the mother. She took us all in her wings and she wanted to take care of everybody and almost raise us to a sense, in that way. And then my younger sister was the rebellious one that was just like, I'm going to do whatever I want, And I love them both so much because I was kind of like in the middle of that. And,
the peacekeeper.
Yeah. And just trying to like rein everything in and give my sister some ease and then give my other sister some mentorship and like, but it's a really hard place when you don't know who you are, but you can tell who everybody else is. Yeah. Right. So like I spent all that time being very, very hyper aware of everyone else everyone else's emotions, everyone else's struggles, everyone else's triggers, like all the things, and not of my own. And so when I'm with my mom in the hospital, I become very aware of what's happening in myself, within me.
Yeah.
So I'm aware of all the surroundings. I'm taking it all in, all this information, the sounds, the conversations. I'm watching my mom deteriorate day after day. And at home, I've got teenagers and a blended home and a little one that I'm now upbringing, totally different from the last ones, right? Because now I'm like, changed my parenting style.
Yep.
Became a mom at 18.
Yeah.
That's a piece of information that, even though it just kind of is,
Right.
now, that was huge.
It was, and you forget how huge it was.
You forget how huge it was.
Because I became a mom around the same time, and I forget. You forget how hard that was.
Because I'm growing up.
Yeah.
Like I was still growing up.
Your brain wasn't developed.
So my motherhood journey has evolved just so dramatically in this entire process. And I thank my mom for that, because, you know, they say that, you know, some things teach you what to do and some things teach you what not to do. And there's the lesson in it all. Yeah. Right? Is that you can take something. This is either who I'm going to be or who I'm not going to be. I want to model that or not model that.
Right.
You know, I want to use that. I don't want to use that. You know, and I can thank my mom for a lot of things because, you know, as rebellious as I was, and once I became a mom, I was like, I'm going to like do everything the opposite way. And I didn't. I repeated so many patterns because I was so unaware of my own issues.
Yeah.
You know,
but that's the thing though, and it's not just you, it's like all of us, because I'm the same. I could say the same exact line that you just said. And actually my oldest, who is now 16, we talk about it all the time. Because he sees how differently I parent his little sister versus how I parented him. But he also is so aware because he has the words that we didn't have.
I know. Isn't it beautiful?
You didn't even know what anxiety was when you were 16 years old. Though? I didn't anyway. Like they said, no, you have a stomach problem.
I admire.
It's crazy.
I admire my kids so much, Mandy. Like I can't. Like, I feel like I'm going to end up writing a book about that one day. Just how much I admire my children.
Yeah.
For being in the same place in their lives in their 20s that I am in my 40s.
I mean, it's mind-blowing.
It is.
Because all my kids, their emotional awareness, their ability to regulate their emotions.
And to tell you.
And to tell me, it feels like you're manipulating me right now. Like, they will say that. It feels like you're trying to and they haven't in a while because I probably was. I had to get awareness about what I was saying to them. Yeah. So, I mean,
but you were
it's
operating
crazy.
From a place of wiring
what I knew.
That made sense.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, wait a minute.
And
so you're telling me that I was manipulated my whole childhood? Because that's what we have to do when they call us out on that. That means that we got to go back and realize.
Wait a second.
Yeah.
And here's the kicker. Because people want to, I'm not going to make a blanket statement, but it's almost as if people fear calling out what had happened or placing blame.
For sure.
But to me, it's like, I don't blame my parents. I don't blame their parents.
I don't either. I'm not mad.
They did not know.
I'm not mad.
They didn't know.
I know. And you know, that's been a journey too, though. So, and you know my story on this too. Like my biological father was not in my life. He signed over rights to me when I was a toddler. And he came back into my life when I was a teenager. And just when I say came back into my life, he attempted to come back into my life as a teenager. And what I've held on to a lot of bitterness, a lot of resentment, but also just a lot of pain.
Yeah.
You know, my abandonment issues.
Well, that's literally the word that was on the tip of my tongue. Yeah. It's abandonment,
strong.
100%.
They're so strong. And I hated that for a while. Because it was reflective in every relationship I've ever been in. Oh my
gosh, you're just, And I haven't shared like bits of my like deepest parts of my story on the podcast yet, but like I very much have had to work through that.
Yeah.
Very much. And to see how it's spilled over into my
everything.
What did you just say?
I said it's gut-wrenching.
It is. It's gut-wrenching because like I can see it, how it spills over into my marriage, how it spills over into with my children and with my friendships even. Like it's everywhere. And but now it's like that's also exciting to see that. Because now I can work to heal it.
For sure.
Because we can heal.
We can.
It feels really hard.
You have to choose to.
Right.
And I think that's where people get lost. Like, I can do all the deep work and become aware of things and even go to therapy. And like, I've done peace coaching and I've done like, you know, all this. I've invested in myself, right? Like for the last 3 years, I have deeply invested in myself, from the books and podcasts and activity, adding different things into my life. My life is definitely different, right? I've changed. My day to day is so different than it was prior to 2020.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of us can say that.
Yeah.
I've seen a massive shift in just humanity in general for where I stand and what, you know, information is coming into my life. But
well, and the openness, I think, too, to receive the new information.
Yeah, people share. Well, we attract, right?
I think so.
like,
Yeah, you're right. You are like what you see. Whatever you're thinking, whatever you're attracting, that is, if you see humanity as terrible, then you're only going to see the worst of humanity.
Yeah. And you know what? It is. It can be.
It can be, yeah.
That's something that I had to come to terms with, too, is the polarity of everything.
Well, like, we're not going to change that. Yeah. You know, you got to focus one thing at a time.
But it's a recognition
it will
that
change,
what we're seeing, the light and the dark, equally, I feel, exists in every space, no matter where you are. So including within yourself.
Right.
Right. And coming to terms with that and recognizing my own darkness was probably the moment that I released the need for control, the need for acceptance, even the fear of, you know, what everyone else thinks, and that's been a battle, you know, the whole time because of those abandonment issues. It boils down to, like, you know, even my mom dying became a root in that abandonment, right? Like, she left us. Yeah. You know? My mom was 58. That's so young. And like, we have grandkids for her to, like, you know, that it's been a lot. And so like, there was that layer of like, I was angry and I was like, here we go again. Just everybody leaves. Everybody leaves. But you know what? They do. We do. Right. I'm going to. You're going to. Yeah. My children are going to. They're going to live out this life, whatever that looks like for them. And they're going to leave. Yeah. And that's actually okay. Yeah. If we can take this blip of time that we have and actually live. Yeah. Live. And that's where, like, you know, the road trip and like the RVing and all of that, because it's a trendy thing, right? Like, everybody's doing it. And I'm like,
well, I don't know though, Becca, because I remember probably 10 years ago, I followed blogs back then, and there may be a couple Instagram accounts, but influencer wasn't a thing. Right. And so I remember seeing that and thinking, man, we could do that. We could do that. If I'm being totally honest, I don't really want to do that because I'm not a camper. I'm not.
It's a different life, right?
Just
like, it's
not my style, I don't think. But maybe I might try it once. But I don't know. I said to Richie, hey, you want to do this? And he's like, no. I'm like, yeah, me neither. But it was a long time ago is my point. Yeah. So I don't know if it's really that trendy, maybe for a little bit, but it's also just like a massive decision to make. And I hope people are not making it just to be trendy. You know what I mean?
I think people are doing everything
to be trendy
days, and that's fine.
Just to build a following.
We all got to find our way. And I'm like, you don't know until you know.
Right.
And that's you know what I'm saying? I could get out on the road and absolutely hate it.
It's still
And
something
that's
to learn.
something to learn.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay. Yeah, you're right. That's right.
Something for me to figure out. And I'm going to be like, okay, I did not like that. I tried it. And it worked. Or I loved this, and this is how I'm going to be a nomad for the rest
But you're
of my
not
life.
going to know if you don't do it.
And that's the thing, is that at 41 years old, if I don't do this now,
Yeah.
while my child is at the perfect age
Yeah.
to travel with, to adventure with, to like, we are like two peas in a pod, right?
Yeah.
I've been so blessed to have a different motherhood experience with my last child.
Yeah.
And I will tell you, I'm developing friendships now with my older kids who are 20. I can't even believe it. 20 and 23. Dylan is about to turn 23 years old, which is insane to me that I have a 23-year-old. But my kids are now turning into my friends. And I will tell you, I don't think it would have gone the way that it has if I hadn't gone through the last 3 years of awakening to myself.
Yeah.
Because, I'll be honest, like there was a point where I was living in fear of my children abandoning me.
Yeah, I definitely have that fear. I mean, I
It's
don't.
been massive, and I'll tell you, maybe
I don't know if I still have it. It's not on,
having
but
that
it's
conversation with my kids, and being real with them, and being very honest and open with them about because it's not their fault. They haven't done anything to me other than just living their lives and figuring themselves out, which is just part of their process, and that's okay. And they've struggled, and they've gone through some really hard things, and they watched, my husband and I, they watched us struggle, right? And they were impacted by that, deeply impacted by that, which caused them to kind of pull away from me.
Yeah.
Justifiably.
Right.
And so when mom passed away and I was going through this abandonment, rage, really, I genuinely was like latching onto them, like, don't leave me too, right? Like everybody's leaving. And my mom passed away. My husband and I separated 4 months later.
Yeah.
And my children moved out of my house. And all of a sudden it's like, everybody does leave.
Yeah.
I got so much validation. It was toxic validation.
Well, because what you look for, you will find.
Right.
Yeah.
I found exactly that root of fear that I had of everybody leaving me. I got it.
Yeah.
And then all that was left, obviously my 9-year-old is, amazing. But I had come to a point that I didn't want to put the pressure on her, right? As a mother, I had become way more self-aware, way more emotionally stable, to where I knew I didn't want her to suffer for what I was experiencing, right? Mm-hmm. Whereas I didn't have that with my other kids. It was kind of, we were all in this together, right? We're like, if I'm struggling, we're all struggling. Like, it's just a part of it. And I give myself a lot of grace in motherhood, because like I was a child raising children, and like I did not have the best examples, and I didn't have the resources either. And I didn't have the finances to like invest in myself, and so many things. And so I give myself the grace and forgiveness.
Sure. Yeah.
But I'm like, holy cow, I've been able to see this from so many directions. Mm-hmm. That's one thing I will say about my life as a whole, is because I have experienced some really dark and painful things in line with some really beautiful and incredible things, I really feel like I can resonate on a lot of layers with people.
Yeah.
And it keeps me seeing where people are coming from. It keeps me understanding and having compassion and grace for people. It keeps me from like taking things personally, because it's not personal.
Yeah, it's
and
not.
That's a big one. Like, it's not personal.
That's the same.
Even when it feels like it is. I mean,
Yeah.
say you're with your partner, things with and I want to say this. So Chris and I, who's Mallory's father, and my husband we were 12 years, and in the last 3 years, we dedicated ourselves to both doing what we needed to do to heal. Mm-hmm. And not everything in that was beautiful, right? Some of it was really hurtful, and we can say we have, like, you know, we've definitely not been the best to one another in the process. But then there came this shift because I was grieving, right? So I was grieving a lot in life, and then simultaneously trying to figure out how to navigate a separation and co-parent and homeschool and run a business.
And we're going to do it different.
And we didn't even get to have a funeral for my mother, right? Yeah. Because it's COVID. Nobody got a funeral. Like, it was such a weird and crappy time. And so I'm like, you know what? If I go back, I would kind of do things that, you know, I'll never say that I won't regret things. I think that's a lie. We all would go back and do something different. I don't care what it is. But what I will say is I'm really proud of the way that we've come out of this.
Right.
I'm really proud of the fact that we leaned in and we said, this is not how this is going to go.
Yeah. And
we had really hard conversations. And we realized that our priorities were not in alignment with the vision that we had. You know, the way that we were behaving and acting and treating one another was not in alignment with the bigger goal of raising a healthy child and not hurting one another, because we actually do love one another, right? And so what we've learned is that we are working now currently to build a friendship that was not present for the majority of our relationship, right? We didn't really know each other like that. He had 2 children, I had 2 children. We blended together.
And then all the stress
and let me tell you, there was no honeymoon phase. That did not exist.
Yeah, you just jumped into life.
Right. It was, we got to go. We've got bills to pay. We've got all the travel, sports, and school, and this and that. And on top of multiple parenting, methods coming into play in one house. My house was the place where all the different parenting tactics and beliefs and all of it collided in my home.
Right.
Right. And that was not pretty.
Yeah.
And when we look back and we're able to reflect on all of that, we're both like, holy crap. Like,
how did you even make it through that?
Yeah. How did we do that? Well, what we did was we neglected one another. And what we did was we were hard on one another. We were judgmental of one another. And we were genuinely surviving.
Yeah.
There was no thriving.
There was no we-ness.
No, not at all.
Yeah.
Not at all. There was no connection. We forgot to connect. Let's just say that.
And even be friends, because do you know they think that most people think that communication is the key to a healthy relationship, and it's actually not.
No.
It's friendship.
No, it absolutely is. I heard this is a movie, and I wish I could remember the movie off the top of my head, but if I think of it, I will tell you later. There's a line in this movie that says, remember that you were someone's girlfriend before you were a mother.
Yeah.
And here's the thing. I didn't get that. We were instantly mothers, fathers, like instantly. And he became a father at 17.
Yeah.
18 years old, right? So we neither one of us had that. We didn't have that like fairy tale, oh, you meet, you like, you figured out, you plan a life together. You just, we didn't have that. It was an instant thing that neither one of us was prepared for. With 2 very different upbringings, very different.
Right.
I'm raised Southern Baptist. He's raised Catholic, and like all of the things just kind of like crashed into one space. But I'll tell you, I have never believed in soul contracts more than I do to this day, like right now.
Right.
I have never been more certain that the people in my life have served a deep, deep purpose.
And when you see it, you see it.
You can't unsee it.
You cannot unsee it.
Even if you want to. Yeah. You cannot. And then you look at that person and you're like, thank you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Genuinely thank you.
Yeah.
Because if it had not been for you, even down to the darkest parts, right? So if it hadn't been for you being the awful person that you were, and this goes for multiple relationships in my life.
Right.
This isn't just with my relationship with my husband. This is genuinely, there have been people in my life who have shown up and been like really unhealthy for me.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
For sure.
Like, but had it not been for that and then pushing me to a space of like, what the heck? Like, you know what I mean? Yeah. I don't know that I would have gained any kind of self-love at all.
Right. I want to ask you this too, because I think this, I already know what you're going to say, but it's like, and do you notice that archetype comes in multiple versions of people?
Oh, for sure.
And it's bigger and louder every time until it's finally like, okay,
right.
I see it.
Yeah.
I see it.
Yeah.
And it wasn't just that person. It's like it was multiple people all along the timeline of your life.
Well, that's why when you shift to seeing people as energy and not a person, like, you know, a character in your life, if you can see them as an energetic force that is like calling you into like, you've got to set boundaries. You've got to know your worth. You've got to decide who you are and be so grounded in that and those people come in to see, have you gotten this?
Yeah. Did you figure it out yet?
Have you gotten this?
Yeah.
And like the reality is, it took me a while.
Yeah,
like it took me some really hard realizations and the multiple that character showing up in multiple places.
I mean, I see it as like sitting. I'm such a visual person, so it's like I see it as sitting in that dark corner, and it's like, okay, I've been pushed into the dark corner so far that I actually can't see out of the room.
Yeah, and
it's like you get there. And you either stay there, because some souls do stay stuck
for sure
in that space.
For sure.
I want to say no fault to their own, but radical responsibility is the only way. It's like you have to be able to hear something and say, oh, shoot. Okay.
See, radical is such a scary word for so many people.
Yeah.
But I've learned radical compassion.
Radical responsibility, radical unconditional love.
Swing
like
the pendulum
the
whole other way.
Yeah.
Like, try it. You've already done all the other stuff. You've already sabotaged yourself. You've already hated yourself. Like, swing it all the way the other way and see what happens. Yeah, it might be wild for a minute, right? But at some point in time, it's going to settle back down. And I tell this this is one of the things I've told my kids to help them visualize. I'm like, look, we're talking about, I don't care if it's religion, politics, relationships, even parenting, like anything. The pendulum is swinging. Whether you want to see it or not, it's swinging. And you can hang on to it and go with it one direction or the other. But eventually, with self-awareness, self-love, compassion, and grace, and the big key of forgiveness.
Yeah.
With those things, it will settle back down to the center.
Yeah.
And then you're going to feel like, okay. And that's where you're in this flow. And like I said earlier, like being in a flow state where it's like, okay.
Yeah.
Like I see that. Okay. And there are some days
and it doesn't knock you off your butt.
It's like, ouch.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I'm not going to take that.
Right.
Or I'm going to leave that one. That one's not for me. I'm going to let them have that.
Yeah.
Right. Learning that and not personalizing, because everybody's on their own individual journey into whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
Right. You want to call it enlightenment, awakening, like, you know, spirituality, God connection, whatever you want to call it. We're all on that same path.
Right. It's just a matter of whether they realize they're on that path too. Yeah. Because some people don't realize that.
Well, and there were times where we didn't, right?
Right. Like, and there's nothing wrong with it either way.
No, because it's part of the process.
It's part of the process.
And it's actually part of the beauty in that, because along the way, all these things that happen, and, you know, I think of some of the absolute worst parts of my life, you know, from, you know, sexual assault to different levels of abuse and abandonment and like all these things. When I think about all of these things, I realized that I wanted to reject them in my life, right? Like shut it down, suppress it, don't address it. It's behind me, right? But it has created me, right? And it gives me a sense of purpose, but also a sense of connection to other human beings, where I can see people at a much deeper level than what they're showing on the surface. And
Yeah.
so there's a lot of people are being driven by that hurt. They're being, guided in the pain versus the light that's trying to pull them out.
Yeah.
And so what you have to do is transmute all of that.
Yeah.
All of that pain, all that darkness, all that energy of sadness and abandonment and anxiety and depression. And you take all of that and you transmute it into something good, something beautiful. Whether it's telling your story, writing a book, starting a podcast, like
just talking to one person.
Because
you never know who's going to cross your path.
Conversation with a stranger.
Yeah.
And realizing they're going through it too.
Me and you have been pretty tight for a while, and we know a lot about each other.
Right.
And we both know that we have very similar stories, from the abuse to the fighting, the abandonment, like all the things. Right. But it's like you're sitting here listing it off, and you have this awareness that, okay, it wasn't for nothing.
Yeah, it wasn't.
It wasn't for nothing. And I think that is like the biggest message that I ever want people to take from the podcast and the stories that they hear is that, yeah, that was really shitty.
Yeah.
And if I could take back that stuff or take it away, like take it from your timeline, would I? I don't know, because it made you who you are.
I know.
But at the same time, like, no child deserves to be abused.
Right.
And we can say that. But now we can also say, like, so far into our healing journey that, you know what? It's okay.
But
It's
but that's because we know that because of humanity, because of the brokenness, because that polarity exists, that dark and light does exist, we know that there's never going to be a time where there isn't someone being abused.
Right.
There isn't going to be a time
Right.
where that, evil doesn't exist.
Yeah.
So in the process, there are these people that come through, these souls that come through, that bring pure light. Mm-hmm. But they cannot embody that light without the experience.
Right.
So for us to really step in and fully become what we are meant to be for humanity, for those little girls, for those teenagers who need somebody to guide them, for the stranger that you meet at the grocery store, whatever that looks like, however that plays out for you, you cannot fully embody that until you've actually been in the dark. Right?
And I feel like I could go on another tangent on that because I won't even talk about it.
Yeah.
I believe so much in that. And it's like the healer was once wounded.
For sure.
That wounded healer.
For sure.
So now I would love to switch gears because I think it's a perfect time. And
Yeah.
I'm very excited to open this book because you designed a self-love flow is what it's called.
Yeah.
It's a guided journal for the woman ready to love herself well. I love that you said volume 1.
And I had no idea what's to come, but I knew it wasn't it.
Yeah.
Right? Like
well,
I mean,
this is the start.
Yeah.
It's like you're going to revise this. You're going to do different. You're going to layer onto it.
Yeah.
But I love that you effing did it.
Yeah.
I love that you did it.
Yeah.
I've been saying I was going to do a journal for the last however many years. Actually, more seriously, just since really starting to see clients. But you did it.
I did.
That's an inspiration for one. And it's so beautiful. I love this. I love this layout and that you have so much room for writing.
Yeah, I know myself, and I designed it with me in mind, right? Because I struggled to find the thing that was helping me. It's a tool that I needed for the last 3 years and didn't have.
Yeah.
So I created it because, and even down to the affirmations in between each prompt, I did not understand. Do you remember being in school and you would get in trouble and you would have to write the same thing over and over and over and over again?
So stupid, by the way.
But imagine the power if they had you write affirmations of character of who you are.
Right.
Not
I will not
going to do this again. But what if it was I am a leader. I am a powerful example of growth.
Yeah.
What if you chose what you had them write over? Because the reason they had you write it over and over again was because they wanted it to stick.
Yeah.
Right?
So they knew it.
They knew it. They know it. And it's just that they don't understand the power they had in their hands.
Yeah.
And so they abused it, right? And so the goal of this is to help women work through. And I'll tell you another reason that I went with a journal of all things was because I had an aversion to writing. I grew up writing and journaling and writing letters and passing notes. I'm a writer, and words are my thing. If I could write for the rest of my life, it would make me completely, like, that's, another layer of me that I'm diving into. But I developed an aversion to writing over the last, decade of my life for lots of reasons. One of those reasons being that my privacy was invaded as a child and as an adult.
Yeah.
My words were taken, my privacy invaded, my journals read, things like that, and then used against me in some way.
Yeah.
And it injured me deeply. It took me a while to pinpoint that. Like going through, I'm like, why am I having such a hard time? But it injured me.
Yeah.
And then I realized that every time I put the pen to the paper, my hand would just shake. And I couldn't, because I was afraid. What if someone reads this and thinks something else? What if someone, uses this against me? And it was just so many things. And I'm like, God, this sucks. This sucks because I have so much in me that I need to get out, right?
Yeah.
So the prompts, are designed to instigate thought.
Yeah. So I love this because you have self-love affirmation. I'm just going to read this. I release fear and doubt, and I embrace the infinite possibilities that await me. Your turn. And then a space to write. And then I love this. This is what I stopped on. Because you have this growth, empowerment, and vision. Reflect on a time when you felt most aligned with your authentic self. What factors contributed to that sense of alignment? That's so beautiful to then reflect on that. Because, it might have been when you were 10 years old.
Right.
Before
all
the stuff comes in and changes you, you know? And we don't think about that. We lose sight of that. We forget who she was.
Yeah.
And that was my whole big thing, Becca, a few years ago. And I think it still is like, who were you before the world told you who to be? And what are the layers and labels and masks that you have been putting on?
So I'll tell you something really beautiful that I'm so grateful for this realization. My children have so I had my son 18, my daughter at 21, Mallory at 32, and their personalities, their characters evolved into a version of me that I was when I had them. So when I look at my son today and I think of me at 18, like 100%, like he embodies so many things about like my character at 18. I look at my daughter and I had her at 21, and today I'm like at 21, I was very much like my daughter, very much. And then I look at Mallory and I had her at 32, and I look at her and she is my most healed, healthy self.
Yeah.
I'm not exaggerating.
I believe
She's
you.
So beautiful.
I 100
and
believe
free,
you.
And I don't want to say she's not wounded.
Yeah.
Because she is.
She'll have her journey.
She's been through it, and she's experienced some things as a child. But like her ability to just be herself and to just dance and sing and wear her makeup, wild emo makeup one day, and the next day she's like, I'm a preppy girl. Like she just designs herself
she just
differently
moves.
each day.
Yeah.
Right. And she is so aware of herself.
Yeah.
That it's humbling.
Yeah.
At the same time as like, I am so in awe of her, because I'm like, wow, this is what it looks like when you're given permission to just grow and to just be a human being, and you're not forced into some, step by step, you should be here by now.
Yeah.
You need to act this way, speak this way.
Right.
Like, and she pushes me. I have to check myself,
Yeah,
because
for sure.
and I'll say, what are you doing? Why are you doing that? And her response to me is so just matter of fact. She's like, I'm being a kid. Oh, you are being a kid. And it's right though.
Yeah.
She's being a kid. Like, Mom, kids make messes. You're right. They do.
Yeah.
They do. And
Scarlett says
what?
that too. So
I
that's
know.
really funny. She's like, I'm just a kid, you know. I'm like, yeah.
But now, as
I know
I'm
you are,
walking around
baby.
my house and I'm visiting my kids' rooms that are now empty.
Yeah.
And I have one looking at me and saying, I'm just a kid. Let me be a kid.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay.
Yeah. I feel you, man. I'm not quite there, but I am close. And when Scarlett says that, and I think about, well,
Girl, I
we're
miss
coming to
them.
the end of the road here.
Girl, I miss them.
Yeah.
It's
It's
another
hard.
level.
It's an
such
ache.
a beautiful, like,
Yeah.
it's, you know, I would not trade my relationship with my older kids now for the world because they have become my best friends. Not exaggerating, my best friends. And they have encouraged me more than anyone on the planet. And that is no joke.
That's cool.
Like the last 3 years, they have been the ones that have said, we're proud of you.
Yeah.
Like, we know that was hard.
Yeah.
And, gosh, it's like, I know now. I used to think my mom was so cheesy because she would say that me and my sisters were her angels on earth. And as a kid, I'm like, oh my God, she's so cheesy. And she'd put it on Facebook and like do all the things. And I'm like, God, Mom. But I get it.
Yeah.
I get it. They bring you into just an awareness of self, and also they offer you the unconditional love
Right.
that the world doesn't give you very much.
Yeah.
You know, so they have done that for me, which has given me not only the encouragement, but the space to grow. Because I'm like, I want them to know who I really am. I don't want them to know me as the version of me that was lost and wounded and hurting and genuinely just fearful of everything.
Yeah.
I was going to mess it all up, you know? And like, I want them to know who I really am. And in order to do that, I got to get back to the simplicity of the cuddle bug. Right? I got to get back to the simplicity of like how I observe life and I enjoy life. And I'm not always feeling heavy. I'm not always sad. I'm not always feeling abandoned.
Yeah.
That's not who I am. That's just a piece of the story. And now I am fully like, and I can say this and don't feel weird about it, but I love myself. I genuinely love myself for the first time in my entire life.
That's so great.
Like, I would want to be my friend.
Yeah.
You know? And that's something that I think we all deserve. Is to be your own best friend. And if you do that every day when you wake up, it'll change how you live your life. It'll change everything. Be your own best friend.
Yeah.
And then don't hold anybody else responsible or at an expectation that you yourself are not filling in.
Yeah.
Let people live and be who they are and grow. And then just stay true to yourself. Be in integrity with who you are. And when you get out of that, because it's going to happen, we're going to get shaken out.
Yeah.
When that happens, come back.
Yeah.
Just come back.
Oh, that's so beautiful. And I was going to ask you like your piece of golden advice, but I feel like that right there, all wrapped up together is
Yeah.
that is it.
Yeah.
You're going to get shaken. Come back to yourself.
Come back. Every time. Every time.
Yeah. Thank you so much for coming and
I
sharing
appreciate
all
you.
this. I feel like your story is so incredibly powerful, and to get to be a witness and then to get to put it out into the world to share it, I just feel honored, honestly.
No, I
really do.
Honor for me, because like I have to tell you before, like I am so proud of you.
Thanks.
No. I
Why-
mean
okay,
that. Like,
hold on,
I
let me
haven't
get in
had the-
receive
I
mode.
want you to receive this. Like, I'm so proud of you because this is what you've wanted. And like, I've known that.
You're going to make
from
me
day
cry.
one. No, like,
Yeah.
it's an inspiration to watch you move through all the crap and just give yourself a chance.
I receive that. I will receive that.
And I love you very much. Human to human, friend to friend, woman to woman, mother to mother. I love you very much. And I am so grateful that our paths have crossed, like, on every level. Like, I'm super grateful.
I love you so much.
I love you too.
All right, my friends, thank you so much for listening to this whole episode. I have my takeaways, but I really want to share a message that Becca sent me because we focus so much on what she's gone through and the lessons that she's learned that we really wanted to add in this piece. So afterwards, she sent me this message. My self-care has evolved greatly through the darkest season of my life. I had to learn what was working and what wasn't, and that took a lot of trial and error. I had to sit in every pocket of my own life and check myself. I had to get brutally honest with how I was living and whether I was embodying my own beliefs. Healing isn't linear, and there is no magical finish line. It's the actual story of life. I'll be healing the rest of my life, and with that, I feed my own evolution and connection to Source, the divine. I now practice grounding, meditation, breath work, clean eating, ritualized mornings and nights. I take ice baths and lift weights. I write and seek knowledge. I invest in myself, and some days I fail, and then I wake up and start again. I'll always start again. It's an honor to get to start again. Such a beautiful message from her, and I'm so grateful that she was able to come and have this conversation with me. It's been a long time in the making, to be honest. We've known each other for years now, and she's always had such beautiful, profound things to say, even before 2020, even before then. There's always been this level of growth that's happened with her and this awareness. So I'm just going to share my biggest takeaway was being able to just sit in the shit. That was the biggest thing that I took away from our conversation, because that's not easy. And naturally we want to swoop in and we want to save people, but you just can't. You just can't do that all the time. You have to give people space to heal and to be and to see what they need to see on their own. Because if we just straight tell people, they're not going to see it the same as if they sit in that and with that for some time and come to that conclusion on their own. And you have to be able to discern when it's right to speak up and when not to speak up. Okay. If you found this helpful, I would love so much if you shared it with a friend. You never know who needs to hear it. And if you want to tag Becca or myself on social media, you can. Her handle is @selfloveflow_ and mine is @lifewithmandy_. And if you'd like to purchase the Self-Love Flow journal, I'm going to pop the link for that in the show notes, so go check that out too. I hope you have the most beautiful day. And remember, as always, you are loved, and you are valued, and you are appreciated. Bye now.